The biodome's atmospheric processors hummed their eternal song as Aliana stood at the observation deck of Draken Prime's royal citadel. Her scales, genetically engineered adaptations that had become the hallmark of her species, caught the artificial sunlight, refracting it into prismatic patterns across the crystalline floor. 200 years had passed since the draconian exodus, when humanity's best geneticists had created her people to survive the harsh radiation of the outer colonies. 200 years since she had become their queen. And 200 years since she had heard that melody. Your Majesty, her chief advisor Vex approached with characteristic caution. His scales were deeper crimson than hers, marking him as third-generation draconian. The human delegation has arrived. They're requesting an audience. Aliana's tail, a magnificent appendage of bioengineered bone and sinew, twitched involuntarily. Humans, pure-strain humans, were rare in this sector of the galaxy. Most had either perished in the resource wars or undergone genetic modification to survive on worlds Earthborn biology couldn't tolerate. "Send them away," she said, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance that her modified vocal cords produced. "We have no business with the Terran Federation." "They claim to have information about the quantum fluctuations near the Helix Nebula," Vex persisted, "the anomalies that have been disrupting our trade routes." Aliana closed her eyes. The Helix Nebula, of course. The universe had a cruel sense of irony. "Very well, bring them to the negotiation chamber." John's hands trembled as he followed the draconian guards through corridors that seemed to pulse with bioluminescent life. The walls themselves were alive, a symbiotic fusion of architecture and organism that his xenobiology training had never quite prepared him for. He clutched his data pad tighter, feeling the weight of the portable holographic projector in his pack. Dr. Chen, his assistant Myra, whispered beside him, "Are you certain about this?" John nodded, though certainty was the last thing he felt. 23 years he'd spent searching. 23 years following gravitational signatures, decoded transmissions, and half-forgotten records from before the Exodus. 23 years trying to find the girl he'd loved and lost to the stars. The negotiation chamber was a marvel of biotechnology. The ceiling rippled like water, displaying real-time data streams of stellar cartography and quantum field measurements. At the far end, seated on a throne that seemed grown rather than built, was a figure that made John's breath catch. Aliana. She was magnificent and terrible. Her scales shimmered with an inner light, and her eyes, those eyes that haunted his dreams, now held a reptilian quality, the pupils vertical slits that contracted as she studied him. Wings, delicate and membranous, were folded against her back. She was everything human and nothing human at all. "You are the Terran delegation." Her voice was beautiful, layered with harmonics that made his chest resonate. "I am Dr. John Chen, quantum physicist, representing the Independent Research Collective." He fought to keep his voice steady. "We've been studying the anomalies near the Helix Nebula." "Speak your business, human." The word human carried a weight he couldn't quite decipher. John activated his data pad. A holographic display materialized between them, showing swirling patterns of quantum distortion. The fluctuations aren't natural. They're echoes of a failed FTL experiment conducted 203 years ago by the Prometheus Research Station. He watched her carefully. Did she remember? The Prometheus Station had been humanity's most ambitious project, an attempt to create stable wormholes for instantaneous travel. It had also been where they'd met, two young scientists working on separate teams, drawn together by late nights and shared dreams of touching the stars. Aliana leaned forward, her expression unreadable. That facility was destroyed. All records were sealed. "Not all." John's fingers danced across the pad. "I've spent 2 decades piecing together what happened. The experiment didn't just fail. It created a resonance cascade that's been building for centuries. If we don't stabilize it within the next solar cycle, it will collapse into a quantum singularity that could swallow this entire sector." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft hum of the biodome systems. "Why bring this to us?" Vex demanded. "The Terran Federation has far more resources." John met Aliana's eyes directly, because the only way to stabilize the cascade is with a specific harmonic frequency, one that requires both draconian bioresonance and human neural pattern recognition working in tandem. "Impossible," Vex scoffed. "Our physiologies are incompatible for such synchronization." "Not impossible," John said quietly, "just improbable. The original experiment included research on consciousness-linked quantum entanglement. 2 minds, properly attuned, could theoretically generate the necessary frequency." Aliana stood, her full height impressive, her wings spreading slightly. You speak of the Prometheus experiments. The consciousness studies were deemed too dangerous. They were discontinued. Not before preliminary trials were conducted. John reached into his pack, pulling out the small holographic projector. Not before two volunteers demonstrated successful quantum entanglement. He activated the device, the chamber filled with soft light and then music. A simple melody played on an old piano, the notes pure and clear. It was a piece John had composed himself 2 centuries ago in a small recreation room on Prometheus Station. He'd played it for a young geneticist named Aliana Torres before she'd volunteered for the Draconian project. The effect was instantaneous. Aliana's scales flashed brilliant white, her wings spread fully, and a sound escaped her throat, something between a gasp and a harmonic cry. Her tail lashed once, sending a decorative sculpture crashing to the floor. "Stop," she commanded, but her voice cracked. John didn't stop. He let the melody play, each note a memory. The first time they'd kissed in zero gravity. The promises made under artificial stars. The day she told him she'd been selected for genetic modification, that she'd be leaving Earth forever, becoming something new, something that could survive where humans couldn't. The day he'd played this song as goodbye. Aliana descended from her throne, moving toward him with predatory grace. "You're John, but John would be dead 200 years. "Relativistic time dilation," John said softly. "I've spent the last 23 years in cryosleep between faster-than-light jumps, searching for you, for the Draconian colonies. In my subjective time, it's been less than 30 years since you left." Her hand, scaled, clawed, yet somehow still familiar, reached out to touch his face. "You didn't modify, you stayed human." "I had to," he whispered. "The quantum entanglement from our original trials, it only works if one of us maintains the original neural architecture. I ran the calculations 1,000 times, to save this sector, to stop the cascade. I need you, we need each other, just like in the experiment." Tears formed in Aliana's eyes, a very human response from a very inhuman face. "That experiment nearly killed us, the neural feedback." "I know the risks," John caught her hand in his. Even through the scales he could feel warmth. "But this time we know what we're doing, and this time the stakes are billions of lives." Vex stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this could be a Terran trick." "Silence." Aliana's command carried authority that brooked no argument. She studied John's face, searching. "You kept your promise, you found me." "I never stopped looking." She turned to her advisor. "Prepare the harmonic chamber, full quantum shielding and medical teams on standby." "Your Majesty." "That's an order, Vex." As her guards and advisors scrambled to comply, Aliana led John to a private alcove. The melody still played softly in the background, the holographic projector left running in the chamber. "I became this," she gestured to her transformed body, "to help humanity survive, to prove that we could adapt, evolve, become something capable of thriving in the harshest environments. I never thought I'd see you again. I mourned you, John, I mourned us." "I know," he reached up to touch her face, tracing the delicate scales along her cheekbone. "But we can still save each other, save everyone. The calculations show that if we successfully establish the quantum resonance, we can not only stop the cascade but stabilize it, create a permanent, usable wormhole. The Draconian colonies and Earth sectors could be connected again, minutes instead of years." Understanding dawned in her alien eyes. "You didn't just come here to prevent a catastrophe, you came to build a bridge." "I came for you," John corrected. "The bridge is just what happens when two people who love each other refuse to let the universe keep them apart." The harmonic chamber was a sphere of pure quantum field generators, suspended in the heart of the citadel. As John and Aliana prepared for the synchronization, technicians monitored readouts that pulsed with incomprehensible data streams. They stood facing each other in the chamber's center, held in place by magnetic fields that offset the gravity. Aliana's bioresonance organs, specialized structures developed through genetic engineering, began to glow with internal light. John wore a neural interface crown that connected directly to his brain's quantum-sensitive regions, the same ones that had become entangled with Aliana's consciousness 200 years ago. "Initiating harmonic sequence," announced the lead technician. Aliana began to sing, not words but pure sound, frequencies that resonated at quantum levels, leveraging the unique properties of her modified biology. John closed his eyes and thought of the melody, letting the neural interface translate his memories, his emotions, into compatible patterns. And suddenly they were together, not physically but in a space beyond space where consciousness itself became tangible. John felt Aliana's fear, her hope, her love that had never died despite 2 centuries and a transformation that should have made it impossible. She felt his determination, his loneliness, his absolute certainty that they were meant for this moment. Their quantum states began to harmonize. In the physical world, readings spiked. The energy signature they were generating was unlike anything the draconian scientists had recorded. It propagated outward, faster than light, riding the quantum foam itself until it reached the Helix Nebula. The cascade, violent and unstable, met their resonance. For a moment, John thought they'd failed. The feedback was immense, threatening to tear apart their consciousness. But then Aliana's voice strengthened, her bioengineered organs producing frequencies no human throat could manage. And John, drawing on memories of every moment they'd shared, every dream they'd built together, anchored their connection in something that transcended physics. Love, it turned out, had its own quantum signature. The cascade stabilized. More than that, it crystallized into a perfect, permanent wormhole architecture. Across thousands of light years, Draken Prime suddenly became minutes away from Earth. When John and Aliana opened their eyes, they found themselves collapsed on the chamber floor, held by each other. Her scales had dimmed to a soft glow, and his neural interface sparked with residual energy. "Did we?" she asked. "Yes," Vex reported from the observation deck, his voice filled with awe. "The wormhole is stable. We have a bridge home." John helped Aliana to her feet. She was alien, transformed, a queen of a species humanity had created and set free among the stars. But when she smiled at him, he saw the girl he'd loved, still there, still reaching for impossible dreams. "What now?" she asked. John pulled out his data pad one more time, calling up new calculations. "Now, we build more bridges. The multiverse is bigger than we ever imagined, Aliana, and we just proved that nothing, not time, not distance, not even evolution itself, can break a connection forged in quantum entanglement." She laughed, the sound musical and strange and perfect. "You always did think too small, Dr. Chen. Let's not stop at bridges, let's build highways." As the draconian and human technicians began coordinating the first official transit through the new wormhole, Aliana and John stood together at the observation deck, watching ships from both civilizations prepare for a reunion 200 years in the making. The melody still played softly in the background, a simple tune that had bridged the impossible, a love song that had become a quantum signature, a promise kept across centuries and stars. And in the space between heartbeats, in the quantum foam where consciousness touches infinity, 2 souls remained entangled, human and draconian, separate and one, proof that the universe's greatest force wasn't gravity or electromagnetism or the strong nuclear force. It was love playing its eternal melody across the stars.